So every year there is that one show everyone's talking about. And this year it's Baby Reindeer.
Yep.
And we talked about this show in a previous video, discussing our thoughts, full spoiler discussions of the show. And we had wondered, who's the real life Martha? We all did. I mean, who couldn't after watching the show? And as expected, some sleuthing was done. And to nobody's surprise, because I think much like Kaylee, I also thought, this chick's going to come out. This chick is going to just want the attention. And she's going to expose herself. Not that it was going to take all that much sleuthing. Because Fiona Harvey, the real life Martha, allegedly, let's make sure we don't get sued, went on Piers Morgan to defend herself, and oh boy, was it an interesting watch. So now this would be the first time that I've ever done a video reacting to anything real life, something attached to a movie or TV show. But because we talked about the show, because it is like one of the most talked about things here, and because we're like desperately looking for views, I just wanted to talk about it. I watched the entire uncensored Piers Morgan interview, which was about an hour long. And, I'm not here to dogpile on top of this woman or, make any like crazy claims. I want to discuss it. I will try to be as fair as possible. I think we both will. But we definitely have our opinions, and we're here to discuss them. So let's jump into them. Now, I think the first noteworthy thing here that I think everyone can agree on is that the actress who plays Martha or Fiona in the show deserves an Emmy.
Oh, yes.
I don't know. And we had discussed this because we talked about this a little bit, just like walking the dog today, like kind of our thoughts on the interview with her. And we were both wondering, like, what did this actress, like, what was she given to go off of? Pictures, video? Like, what did she have? So what we know he says he has are the emails, are the voice messages, the tweets, the Facebook posts, right? So one of those has a voice, right? So she can mimic the voice from the voicemails. So she definitely got the voice from the voicemails. But my God, it's hard. And I think this actually, I will say this in defense to a degree, because I'm not going to defend her much. So let me kind of come out a little on her side for like 1 second, and then it's probably going to be all against her. But I think there is a tad bit of an initial bias to her because we watched the show, but because of how exact she is to who she is in the show. So it's very hard for our brains to disconnect from that performance because it is so identical.
Yeah.
I feel like if they had portrayed her differently and she came out and she looked different and she sounded different and she acted different, I think maybe we would have came into this being like, well, wow, they like didn't get her right at all. And maybe she is, a different person. So I do think we are instantly kind of like biased because of that. But then even if that was the case, the next 50 plus minutes is just that she's not doing herself any favors, and I wouldn't have believed her anyway, because I think she is just outright lying throughout the entire interview. But we'll discuss that. But you agree, you feel like with this show and how accurate the portrayal is, do you feel like that immediately makes people like more inclined to believe that she is the person that they're portraying in the show?
Yeah, I do think that the performance is uncanny, and it's a really interesting situation because, when you watch the Netflix series, it's based on true events. Richard Gadd is playing himself.
Yeah.
In the show, and the actress obviously is playing the part, but it's a really weird, like, it is not fiction, but maybe parts of it are fiction. And like, even when we did our review, I had kind of a weird time talking about it, because it's like, you can critique like the show as far as like the theatrics of it all and the performances and everything,
Sure.
but then when it comes to the actual situation and the stalking and the relationship between Fiona and him, that's where it gets kind of dicey, because it feels, I guess it just feels gossipy. It's
Yeah.
weird, and I'm not above gossiping. Like, I think there's a reason why, true crime and shows like this are so popular, because people really do love speculating. So I think that anybody that has seen the show and then watches the interview, I do think that you're automatically set up to be inclined not to believe her. But as you said, I do think that if you watch the entire interview, like, it becomes very clear that she is a really unwell person. And to me, I felt very bad for her. And I did feel kind of bad watching the interview. And I'd said this to you multiple times, and even us talking about it in a video also makes me kind of feel this way, where it's sort of like, people are exploiting a mentally unwell woman for entertainment to some degree.
So my question that I was going to ask you, since you're kind of going down that road anyway, so let me just get it out of the way right now, and then you can continue, is how do you feel about Piers Morgan bringing her on and interviewing her? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like that is wrong, right? Do you feel like, because I remember when Dr. Phil interviewed Shelley Duvall, a lot of people got upset about it. They were like, you're just, taking advantage of a mentally unwell woman for ratings. That's messed up. But it's like, somebody was going to interview her.
Yeah.
It was going to happen.
Yeah.
If she wants to come out and make these claims, I don't see any argument against interviewing her.
Yeah.
But do you think maybe, I don't know, because would it be more wrong to bring her out to defend herself whilst also already having the evidence to disprove her? Right? Like, if they, because that's the other thing, and I want to let you speak really quick, but like, this is where I'm at with that. It's like, this is one of the most easily disprovable claims ever. So as somebody who went to law school, supposedly, she should know better than that. And that is why it is so sad, if true, that she's lying, which I'm 999% like pretty much positive she is lying. So like, I look back and I think, like, would it be more wrong to bring her on with ironclad evidence that wouldn't take but a day or two to put together? It's not going to take much sleuthing to find out she went to jail. Pretty much, they should have already had that information with the network that he's on. Like, they should have been able to find that out pretty quickly. And then been like, you never went to jail? Okay, so here's your mugshot of you in jail. Like, would that have been more messed up? Or like, should they bring her on to give her point? Because he gave her a million outs. He kept being like, 100%, you didn't do any of these things, right? Before we go on to court. So how do you feel about him bringing her on and how it was handled?
I mean, it's complicated, and I do think you kind of already said, like, the gist of it, in terms of, if it wasn't him interviewing her, somebody else would have. I think, she's not being coerced to be interviewed, so, it is her own choice to come out publicly and, to talk about it. So I do think that she should, of course, be allowed to say her piece. But I did feel weird watching the interview too, though. Like, I felt like you said it too. Like, he did give her a lot of moments to be like, well, maybe I did send him a lot of emails, or maybe I did whatever. But I kind of felt like the way he was presenting them is sort of like a parent that's like, I already know that you've lied to me, like, to their kid, and like, I'm just gonna see if I can catch you in the lie. And I don't know. I don't know how else, I guess, to handle her because she is like a pathological liar. But as we were talking about earlier today, I don't think she's able to like understand. I think she believes her lies 100%. So even when she contradicts herself and, is like, talking in circles and everything, I think she's always believing what she's saying and is under the impression that she's being completely honest.
That's the pathology.
Yeah, and that's where I start to feel like, okay, this is kind of a pointless conversation because you can't make her see that she's lying and that, whatever. Like, if all this is true, right? Like, it's like you can't get that person to, like, see reality clearly because she has so many, like, defense mechanisms preventing her from, like, facing herself to a degree.
But she's coming on there to defend herself. And he's giving her the platform to do so.
Yeah.
And he knows that, like, this is the biggest story. This is the big interview that everyone wants to see, right? Outside of, like, politics. This is the big story in the country right now, right? And he's pressing her because she's there to defend herself. And he's giving her every opportunity to prove her innocence. And she's doing everything to the contrary. I think he's trying his best to give her the opportunities, whilst also, yes, to a degree. He's been doing this for like 40 years. And he's interviewed mass murderers. He's interviewed all sorts of people. And he straight up says in there, like, at some point, he's like, it's either Netflix is lying or you're a really bad liar. Which, to me, was him kind of subtly, or not so subtly in my opinion, but subtly to her, because she wouldn't pick up on it. He's outright calling her a liar. And he's like, you're fucking bad at what you're doing. Like, you're contradicting yourself every 5 seconds. So he could have been way worse. He could have been way meaner. Yeah. He could have been way more like aggressive with her. And I think he wore kid gloves to a degree because he could tell she was not right.
I didn't find that he was rude to her at any point. I think it was, as you said, I just think she wasn't picking up on some subtext of the conversation that I think the viewers were. So that's more what I was like, oh, this feels a little odd. I think what I would have liked, either, now that the interview has aired, seeing maybe like a psychologist or, somebody who like has training and education in, mental illness, like, watch the interview and give their thoughts on her like behavior and like what she's saying. Like, I think that would be a really interesting take. Or if like we could go back in time, having somebody like a certified psychologist be the one that's interviewing her. Just
She'll
because
do multiple
I
interviews,
think that they would have a different way of addressing her that maybe wouldn't be so like, because like I think his interview style is made for the sensationalism. I think that, and it is a very like sensational story too, as you said, like everybody's talking about it, but I don't know. I don't think he was disrespectful or anything necessarily. It's just, it's very TV, that's all. Like, it's very...
How do you conduct this interview otherwise?
I don't know.
He's literally just bringing up all of the facts of the show, what she's declining like as truth. I mean, that's it. That's what I would do. Yeah,
I don't know. It's just a feeling that I got from it. I guess I don't really have a great explanation for why I felt that way. I just kind of had this weird feeling watching him at times, and I'm not necessarily taking her side on anything, because having seen the interview, the feeling I got from her specifically was that she was lying and is unwell. So, I'm not saying that she's correct, but I don't know, I don't think anybody, we need to have, like, now that this is all out in the open and she's, like, coming forward to discuss it, all of these things that she's saying are false now need to be proven either true or false.
Sure. So a couple things on that. I guess number one would be, and this is very unlikely, but in the very unlikely scenario that it is all proven that she is telling the truth and that he was lying, then I guess we would, and everyone else would be like, wow, we read that wrong.
Oh, sure, that would... I mean, it would definitely be shocking to find out that this was all, what was the word, like, orchestrated and, like, forged. You know, everything was falsified. That would be really shocking, but I don't think Netflix would agree to something like that, just because of, like, the liability on their part. I mean, could he have lied? Sure, but...
I'm sure not every single word of the show is true. That's
No,
just true
I
of
never
any
thought
based
that
on a true
when
story.
we watched it. Yeah, I am sure that there are dramatizations, and it's, you know, there's a poetry to it. So some of it's going to be like how he was feeling at that time of his life, and, you know, whatever, and that's fine. Like,
And there's
it
a
doesn't need to be...
condension as well,
Yeah.
where you condense material into like a shorter time period, or things are all happening at the same time or whatever. That's just writing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is just, it's a really interesting way to tell a story, to make a true story and have yourself play yourself in it. It is definitely the most interesting
But no one could play
version
it
of
like
that.
him.
No, and
Right.
I think it's, you know, I think it's a great show. It's just a really interesting blend of, like, fact and fiction.
Sure.
You know? And I think for some people that don't have, like, media literacy or just even, like, self-awareness, like we were talking about, how there are people that are harassing her, and
Which is fucked up.
yeah, you were talking
I disagree
about
with
that.
this completely.
Yeah.
This is pure hypocrisy. You're harassing her to prove that she shouldn't harass people.
Right.
Makes no fucking sense. Leave her alone. Let the courts figure it out. She outed herself. You guys did it, but she was going to do it anyway. So leave her the fuck alone. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
No one should be harassing or bullying anybody. It's like the whole point of the show. Get
Yeah.
the point. You shouldn't harass people. Yeah, she sucks, right? What she did's terrible if all of this is true. But that doesn't give you the right to go and harass her, right? That just let the courts suss this out for themselves, right? And then we'll go from there. But contacting her and harassing her just shows that you've learned nothing from this show.
Yeah. The other thing too, and I will definitely give credit to Piers Morgan for this, because watching her responses to things and just seeing her kind of constantly backtrack or say something that she's, like, contradicting
Oh my God,
something
the amount
earlier.
of contradictions.
Yeah,
It's
there's so
crazy.
many, and I think he did a good job at kind of at keeping those straight, like when she would contradict herself and raising it. So I don't think that was done poorly or in a mean way. But I felt very much like just how exhausting it would be trying to talk to this person and try to get them to admit that they were wrong about something, or, you know, admit that they were caught in a lie or whatever. And I think that just really, again, is shown in Baby Reindeer, but now that it's the real person, it's like, well, this is, like, very clearly somebody who is an abuser and, like, would gaslight you, and, you know.
So an important note here, and I think this is something that we should mention because, you know, this goes to the conversation you were having about, like, feeling uncomfortable with it. So the important note to remember here is that she's the one coming forward and once again contradicting herself, but to the point. She's saying, this is about me. I'm the person. I'm coming on Piers Morgan, right? People could have attacked her and she could have done this and that and fought it in court without coming out, you know, done it privately and, like, tried to settle out of court and tried to get people off her back or whatever. But no, she's coming forward to say, I'm Martha. But then also in the same breath, she's saying, I'm not Martha, right? Because he's like, well, if you didn't send the 41,000 emails, like, who did? So that can't be you. And she's like, yeah, that's not me. I'm not Martha. But then she's like, I'm here. So her whole argument, she completely destroys any case she has in court because she outright says, like, number one, she's never mentioned in the show by name, right? Yes, it's very similar, right? Anybody would be like, watch her and then watch this girl and be like, yes, it's very easy to figure it out. So the fact that Netflix and Richard Gadd both had said, Like, we went to extreme lengths to try to hide her identity. Bullshit. That right there, I'm calling out bullshit. Because you made her exactly the same fucking person. And checking in on your back life, interviewing a couple people. It's like Piers Morgan said in the interview, I've been doing this for 40 years. I could have figured out who you were in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I do think
with my team.
Was,
so they failed in that way.
I think that was, that's the disappointing thing, because she says that, like, she realized the play version of this was about her, like, before Netflix even picked it up, because there was, like, a photo of him holding a newspaper that had, like, the headline from the past, like, offense that she had been arrested for with the other attorney, you know, so it's like, it's very clearly, like, about her. But yes, I think that I when we finished watching the show, that was also a reaction that I had of being like, okay, like, he's comfortable saying, like, this is me, like, this is my life, but the person that he's talking about, not that, you know, like, he's talking about somebody who abused him and, like, stalked him and everything, so of course I think he should be able to talk about that, but there definitely wasn't, like, her identity, I don't think, was kept hidden, and there are other, like, very crazy, unwell people who are now, like, harassing her and doing other things, and that's where I think it's not, like, that's not cool. Like, you know, should she be held accountable? Well, if you believe in karma, right? I mean, like, yeah, she should be held accountable. Like, that's not, you know, that's
she already
not the
was.
point.
If she went to jail, she was held accountable. But
she doesn't deserve to be put on the public, like, chopping block necessarily. Although, I don't know, like, who's to say, right? Like, there's a lot of, you know, people who, like, if somebody abuses you, like, they shouldn't necessarily be kept protected from the backlash of that abuse becoming public. So I guess that's probably more where I stand with it, but at the same time, I don't know. It is a complicated issue, I guess.
Getting into, like, a lot of the contradictions. So there's a lot of things that she says in here that are just instantly red flags that I'm like, no. You know, like, there's little things like her saying, you know, the way she found out about the Netflix series was because about 2 weeks ago, she heard from the BBC that Netflix acquired the rights. What? That, there's no way that's accurate. Like, why would the BBC be saying that Netflix acquired the rights to his story? Like, that all was, like, confusing. But that's nor here nor there. That's like a small thing. But I remember she said that, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But there's so many things she says that doesn't make any sense. So she tries to roll back so many things that she says. So he kind of goes at her about the emails, which she denies. And she's like, 41,000 emails. That's crazy. That would be so many. Like, how many a day is that? Blah, blah, blah. But then later in the interview, he's talking about the emails, keeps kind of pressing her on it. And he's like, so if we find out that you did send him 41,000 emails, then she concedes, well, even if that's true, that doesn't mean all the other stuff is. And he pushes back on that, like, why did you frame it that way? Like, is it true or is it not? And she's like, well, no, I'm just saying, like, even if that stuff came out to be true, that I did send him 41,000 emails. She didn't explicitly say it like that, but that's what she was saying. Even if you do find out I sent him 41,000 emails, doesn't mean I did all the other things, like sexually assault him in a canal or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's like, but it would give a lot of credence. Right. When you're sitting here and saying you did none of these things, and then all of that falls apart. That doesn't add to your credibility. Yeah. Right? So he's given, that's why this interview, this is why I'm saying I don't know how else you do it, because he keeps trying to help her the best he can. Yes, it's sensationalism. He's a news reporter. Yeah. He's going to be there to get some clicks and also to, like, you know, get to the bottom of things, which is what he was trying to do. But he was also trying in his best, you know, in the best of his abilities, in my opinion, to give her plenty of opportunities to set the record straight and say, listen, yes, I sent him 41,000 emails. Yes, I left him 350 voicemails. Yes, I sent him a bunch of tweets. Yes, I did all these things, but I didn't threaten his parents, but I didn't grab his dick, but, you know, all these things, right? Whatever. And it's like, she waffles she waffles, right? So the Twitter stuff gets brought up, and he's like, oh, did you, tweet at him? No. You never? Well, maybe a couple times. Okay, well, it looks like it's more than a couple. We looked. And then as soon as he's like, we looked, or something along those lines, she's like, yeah, I sent him 18. So she has a specific number. She knows exactly how many she sent him. But then when you look at it, a lot of her tweets that she sent out, which I saw a few of them, completely disprove a lot of the things she says. She said she never like went to his shows, never, didn't even really know him, didn't, care about him, didn't anything. She also didn't fancy him, right? And she's like, oh, I wasn't into him at all. And also calls him a homosexual. I think he's a homosexual. But then retracts that by saying he offered himself to me. And I was like, I have a boyfriend. But then also in the tweets, she tweets at him and talking about what a nice ass he has.
Yeah.
And how good his ass is. But she didn't fancy him. And he's a homosexual. But he offered herself to him, and she was talking about what a nice ass he has on Twitter, right? And then she's tweeting out about his show and how, oh my God, you got to see his show. He's so good. Oh, but I don't know anything about his show, and I don't really know him. But then she also says, oh, did you go to his house? No, I don't know where he lived. Okay. Later in the interview, I sent him a letter. You sent him a personal letter talking about the rape that then she later says, I think he made it up, but she sent him a letter to his house where she didn't know where he lived, but also that letter was sent to, was also about a rape she then claims that he made up.
Yeah.
So she's talking to him and sending a letter like, oh my God, that's so terrible that happened to you. Then says it didn't happen to you. I also don't know where he lives, but I sent him a letter. Then he's like, oh, I have this many letters. And she's like, well, if he has any more letters, because she's like, no, I never sent him a letter. Okay, I sent him one. Oh, it was because of this. But then, if he has any other ones, he probably forged them all.
Yeah.
It's like, you're fucking all over the place.
It's so hard to, keep it straight.
Yes.
And that's what I was saying earlier about, how exhausting it would be to talk to her and to, be in an argument with her. And, I've had arguments with people like that before, and hard.
I want to give really important context here really quick, just from a personal standpoint. My mother is a pathological liar. I grew up with one my entire life. I know what a pathological liar looks like. They are very grandiose in the way that they speak about themselves. Her talking about having a photographic memory, but also not remembering anything. This is classic behavior.
Yeah.
When she looks at the camera and she's asked certain things, and she's asked about specific things, when she denies them, she starts blinking like crazy and looking off to the left. Yeah. These are all classic telltale signs of lying, but it's she has delusions of grandeur where she talks about I have a photographic memory and I was tops of my class. Then 5 minutes later, well, how did you do in law school? Oh, I don't really remember my grades, and I probably did okay. I wasn't tops of the class.
Yeah.
Do you have a photographic memory where you were tops of the class? Or do you not remember things? So her memory only kicks in when it's convenient for her. But then when she needs to give very specific things. And here's the other thing. She also points out how detail-oriented she is by pointing out Piers Morgan's age, the actress who plays her's age, plenty of her physical attributes, whether she's a brunette, she has the Scottish accent, that she is actually English, that she... and I've never watched the show, but everything they're saying in the show about me is untrue. How could you know when you didn't watch the show?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest contradiction, I think, that everybody immediately picked up on, is the fact that she's talking about the show and saying that she never saw it. Because if you had a show come out that you were being defamed in, 100% you would watch it to know what they were saying about you.
Yeah.
It really sucks because, at the end of the day, she is mentally unwell, and I think it's, really easy for people whenever, we talk about mental illness, and it's oh, they have depression, or they have anxiety, we need, everybody needs mental support, and blah, blah, blah. But then when you have, illnesses like this where they can do damage to other people, it becomes, and like I'm not making an excuse for the damage, but there is also like there's a cause, there's a reason for it that could maybe be addressed, you know, like at younger ages perhaps, that would prevent a lot of things from happening. And I think it's hard for people to talk about, and that sucks because there's plenty of mental illnesses that can have negative repercussions on, I mean, obviously they all do, but like, you know, where the person who has the mental illness can lash out or hurt other people as a result of their mental illness. And again, not an excuse to hurt other people, but like those people also need help. So I don't know. It just sucks.
Another thing I found really interesting here is the part where he brings up that she worked for a law firm.
Yeah.
And that the people at the law firm fired her very quickly. And that they actually, like, was it a restraining order or something along those lines? But, like, the people in the office were scared of her, and that they were, like, given alarms to carry or something like that. Or, like, and she was like, oh, no, I quit. And it's just like every red flag under the sun. It's like a law firm is saying that you were crazy and were, like, stalking the place and were dangerous. Bro.
And Pierce even says, too, like, what are the odds that, like, these people from your past would say that you acted in a similar way that now Richard Gadd is saying that you've acted? Yeah. Like, that doesn't happen without there being a correlation.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, very apparent throughout this that she is just straight up lying right and left.
Yeah.
And what's so sad about it is, as I had said at the beginning of this is one of the most easily disprovable cases ever. So she's really setting herself up to be ridiculed even more mercilessly by coming out, revealing her identity, agreeing, yes, this is me, putting herself out into the world, and it's going to be so simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Piers is trying to, you know, impress upon her in this, is like, these are all so easy. He says it multiple times. This is going to be so easy to disprove.
Yeah.
Like, if we have the email addresses that link to yours, plus she says she has 6 email addresses and 4 phones. Who the fuck has 4 phones?
Yeah, that they actively use.
I have 3 email addresses. One is for the channel, specifically. I made it for the channel. One is from, like, my childhood, and I got rid of it later on because I wanted to kind of have more of an adult email address, because I had an AOL account.
Yeah.
And my brother has the same thing. He had, like, a really dumb screen name, like NZS Cool Skater, and he was like, dude, that's, like, I don't want to give that out to jobs. I don't want anything. So you have, like, the kid email that you make when you're, like, a teenager, and you're not thinking about the names that you're putting and all, and the AOL and all that. It makes it look old as fuck.
Yeah.
So I got a Yahoo email with a better name.
Yeah.
And then I made a third email for the channel specifically so that people in here could send, you know, emails to us, and I put it down in the descriptions below, but that's specifically for the channel only. So I do technically have 3 emails. But 6 I couldn't even imagine having another 3 emails and, like, keeping up with them. And then her saying she has 4 phones, and then when he pushes back on that, not only does she immediately be like, well, 2 are broken, and it's like, then you have 2 phones. Like, why would you say you have 4? You know how many phones I've had in my life? You know how many phones I have had that have broken? I wouldn't bring them up in an interview. I would be like, I have 17 phones.
Yeah.
Oh, well, 16 of them I've gotten rid of at this point, but I now still only have 1. Like, what? Why did you bring up 4 phones? But then immediately when he's like, that's a lot of phones, she's like, oh, well, 2 broke, and 1 I don't really use, and then I have this one.
Yeah, and she
But she even admits, like, she's like, oh, I had, like, a really old phone, which is exactly what she's using in the show to pretend she has an iPhone.
Right, yeah. And with the email thing, too, and he's like, I don't know anybody that has 6 emails, and she's like,
you don't know that many people.
Yeah, very interesting reaction that she has. On, like, one hand, she's trying to, like belittle him and make it seem like he's the like weirdo.
Yeah.
And then also with the phone thing, she kind of tries to be like, oh, like it's not that weird. A lot of people have like two phones where they'll have like a work phone. That's
Sure.
pretty common.
Sure.
Like where they only do work things. And that's kind of what she was trying to say. It was like, I have a phone for my utilities and I have a phone for work.
Who has a phone for their utilities?
Yeah.
Why would you need a phone for your utilities?
Super weird. I saw some comment though that was like, if you have 6 emails and 4 phones, like you're either a scammer or a stalker. And
100%.
I think that's very true. I think there's not really another reason why you would have so many.
And that's such like what? Why admit those things?
I mean, yeah, like this is kind of what I was saying earlier, where like I don't think she really understands like what the implications of some of these things that she says are.
The reason she has 6 emails, just so that we're clear, is because she sends out emails till she gets blocked, then creates a new email address to email the person from. Then that gets blocked, and so on and so forth. This is why she has 6 emails, is because she's stalking people, and she gets blocked, and then has to change her email address. Just like a phone number. That's why she has 4 phones. I'm going to call your family until they block my number. Then I'm going to use a different phone to call your family till they block that number. Then I'm going to use... and so on and so forth. This is why someone has 6 emails and 4 phones, is because they keep getting blocked.
Yeah.
Do you believe she has a lawyer boyfriend?
I don't.
This seems like the scene in The Breakfast Club. Oh, I've laid numerous girls in the Niagara Falls area.
Yeah, I have a feeling that, as you had said to me, that is either made up or that is another person who she has stalked.
Yes.
Who doesn't really
I agree
consider
with
her a girlfriend. And when she
probably
was
the lawyer that
about,
she went to try to take this case to, she's now like, we're
maybe
dating.
For 5 years. I don't know, because he asks her about her past relationships and she like brags about having so many.
She also says in there, like, I've had more relationships than Richard, but I wouldn't know.
Right.
What?
Right. But in her, and I'm curious because I'm like, I don't know, did she have like a legitimate relationship, or are these other people that she has like stalked and has a fantasy that they are together?
Well, in the show, he breaks up with her to try to break through her fantasy because she's like, you ruined it. Now we can never be together. Like, she thinks they're a thing.
Right, which was something that I was like, I don't think that's how you should handle that because of the fact that she has that fantasy. But the other thing, too, that we had kind of talked about, like one thing that I will not be surprised about is if multiple people start popping up saying that they were stalked by her now that she's kind of come out.
Take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because people are looking for attention.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say that, and maybe like 1 out of 5 are telling the truth.
I also won't be surprised if there's more interviews, like if she goes on other
100%
news sources or podcasts or whatever.
She's going to milk this for every cent it's worth.
Yeah, which, like, this is very much like a fad thing. Like, as far as the level of importance for, like, everybody, it's pretty low down there. Like, it very much is, like, reality television to a degree.
It's a distraction from our current politics. Yeah, that's what this is.
And, like, we're talking about it. Like, I've talked about it with coworkers and stuff. Like, it's definitely in the zeitgeist or whatever.
It's this year's Tiger King.
Exactly. And that's what I had said it reminded me of when we watched it. But I, on one hand, too, because I feel like, Richard, he releases this Netflix series, obviously has to know that whether or not he thought that it would gain the popularity that it has, like, he's putting it out there like very publicly, like internationally. So, you'd think that he is at a place in his life where he's able to like confront everything and that he doesn't feel what he was feeling 100% at the time that was taking place. But what I'm getting at with that is that now that she's coming out, and I definitely am worried that it's kind of just continuing the circus for him. You know what I mean? Like,
she's just giving him material for season 2.
Right.
like we're watching season 2 right now. That's how I felt watching this interview. I felt like I was watching episode 8 or season 1, episode 1.
But I hope it doesn't get so insane that there
season 2, episode 1.
I hope that it doesn't get so insane that there's a season 2. Like, I hope that isn't what happens, you know, where like something crazy goes on where she's like, I don't know. I think
that's inevitable with her.
Yeah. And that's a shame.
So yeah, I mean, I had one more thing to say, but honestly, I completely forgot what it was. If I remember, I will put it in the comments below. So you can check. I'll pin it at the top if I do remember what it was. I remember I had something, but I completely lost track of it in my mind. There's so much to keep up on with this. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, do I feel sorry for her? To a degree, yes. Because she didn't have to put herself out there. Right? And for her to come out and the claim makes no sense. It's, hey, Netflix made a show I didn't watch. And it's definitely not me.
Yeah.
But I want money for defaming me.
Right.
But the only reason anyone knows it's me now is because I confirmed it's me. But I'm saying it's not me, but I want Netflix to pay me because they lied about me. But they didn't, because they don't mention your name, and it's only because now you're saying it's you that it's you. It makes no sense. I don't see how she could possibly have a case because she's never mentioned, right? Like, yes, it is very similar to her, obviously, but that's how it goes. And they purposely didn't name you. They purposefully. He's never brought you up. He's purposely never given like the details specifically for people to find you. Like, he can't control people sleuthing and figuring it out.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to tell the story the way he wants to tell it. And if it is true, which I think it probably is, we discussed that very heavily in our discussion of this. I just don't think he'd make himself look the way he was if he was, you know, he's the one that's having more humility. He's the one that's more like, yeah, I did a lot of stupid shit too. I kind of egged her on. You know, I was masturbating to the thought of her and all these different things. Like, he does not present himself in a positive light throughout that show. He seems very honest about this, and she seems completely dishonest about everything. So it just doesn't bode well for her. And once again, I don't think she has a case. I think the only thing that she's doing in the end here is exposing herself, and it's going to be very easy to prove that she's lying.
Yeah.
And once that happens, I don't know where we go from there. Where will she go from there? Will she go on and be like, no, you know, conspiratorial? And with as much conspiracy theories that there are out there today, she'll find her crowd. Right? There's a bunch of lunatics online that believe the most asinine shit imaginable.
Yeah.
So she'll probably fall in with that crowd that's like, yeah, I believe it. I believe the freaking CIA got you. You know, kind of shit like that. So she'll probably find her people, but man, I don't think this is going to go well for her.
No, I don't think that she's, like, even if evidence, you know, comes out that proves that she did send all the emails and the voicemails and everything.
Very soon.
I do think that she will probably still deny it, and I think that it'll kind of push her further into
psychosis.
Her delusion. Yeah, because it's a defense mechanism. Like, her brain is not letting her see the reality to try and protect her in some way. And that's kind of what I was trying to talk about in terms of the mental illness of it all, you know, where, like, she of course should be held accountable, but we also have to remember that her brain probably doesn't work the way that a healthy brain would.
Yeah.
So
there's other contradictions in this interview. I mean, we did all of this off the top of our head. If we missed something that you want to also point out, please comment below with what those things are. You know, I probably noticed them. I mentioned them to Kaylee. I was rifling them off the top of my head. There's so many. There's so many constantly throughout the video. I'm just like, wait a minute. You just said this 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
The photographic memory thing is the most laughable.
Yeah.
Right? To me, that is the telltale sign of a pathological liar.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I'm so amazing. I have a photographic memory. It's like, no, You clearly don't. She can't remember anything. Yeah. Do you have 4 or 6? It's 4 or 6. I can't remember. You have a photographic memory, but you can't remember anything. That's a selective photographic memory. Those don't exist. So you either have them one or you do not have one. Yeah. She's delusional. And yeah, so Baby Reindeer season 2, episode 1, the Piers Morgan interview was off the chain, y'all. That shit was like, this chick deserves an Emmy. I wouldn't be surprised if that was just like the actress from Baby Reindeer in a little prosthetic makeup or something, because holy shit, is that the same person?
It's very uncanny. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I think within the next week, we're going to get confirmation. We're going to get some leaks or something, but it's going to be proven by Netflix and Richard Gadd. They're going to release, a statement from the courts or whatever.
Yeah.
We have decided, we have unequivocal evidence that Fiona Harvey sent 41,000 emails.
Yeah.
That we have confirmation of 350 voicemails. That we have, it's all, that she went to jail. That's going to be the easiest one. That's going to come out in the next couple days. Someone's going to release her mugshot and the jail she went to, and then you're going to have interviews with some of her cellmates who are like, she stalked me in the prison. This shit's going to come out very quickly because it's the big thing, and these stories are fads. They come and they go very quickly.
Yes.
So everyone's going to want to jump on this with as much attention as the Piers Morgan interview got in a day. Yeah. This thing has 600,000+ views. He had 60, 80,000 people watching it live online when it was happening. This is a big, massive thing right now, and it's got a ticking time clock on it.
Yeah.
So people aren't going to be interested in this in a few weeks. They're going to want to know this information tomorrow. So the faster they can get this shit out, the faster they will. So you will see within the next couple days, you're going to see all these things coming out. Yeah. Just because everyone's going to be doing their sleuthing, everyone's going to be doing their reporting, and they're going to want to be the ones that break the news first. Ha, she was in prison.
Right.
And then it's over for her. As soon as she has a mugshot released and it's confirmed to be true that she went to jail, it's all over. That's the end. You cannot lie that you never went to jail ever and then to have mugshots released of you in jail. It's over for you. You have no credibility at that point. Once all the lies are exposed, then no one's ever going to listen to you. Even if she didn't grope him in the canal or whatever. It doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah.
You were given every chance under the sun to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Say, you know what? I did send him a few thousand emails. I was kind of obsessed with him, but nowhere near the level he was. She could have met halfway. She could have came in and told the lies better, but she didn't. She's a pathological liar, so she's incapable of doing it. That's why I know she's lying, because she contradicts herself every 5 seconds. And it's like, you are lying. You are trying everything in your power to cover up all the lies. And it's all going to be so easily exposed so fast. And you are not some big figure that people are going to want to stand behind because you have some cult of, followers behind you.
Yeah.
Everyone already thinks you're lying. You're already on an uphill battle.
Right.
And all of this information is so easily disprovable. You're fucking ruined. You've ruined yourself. Whatever credibility, whatever life you had, you have now destroyed. Is anyone going to want to hire you? Is anyone going to want to be friends with you? Is anyone going to not relentlessly shit talk you online? Like, no matter what we say, no matter what anyone says, she's going to get bombarded with people for years to come who are going to just obsess over wanting to ruin her life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she made a huge miscalculation here, but she's mentally ill. So it's like, it's sad, but I don't know what can we do? I hope people leave her alone, but it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's that. So, yeah. It's fascinating.
It is.
It's fascinating. I do think that we are going to get a documentary covering this
Yeah, I won't be surprised if that
within
happens.
a year. You know, to try to cash in on this because of how popular it is right now. Just like they did with Tiger King season 2 that no one gave a shit about.
Right.
And almost no one watched, even though everyone was like obsessed with season 1.
Yeah.
Even you were crazy into the first season.
I know.
And we didn't even watch the season. We watched like a couple episodes of the second season. We're like, this is literally just sensationalism to sell a second season.
Yeah, I think that the Tiger King phenomenon, though, also because it coincided with COVID was a big reason why it became so popular.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't have the same situation happening with this show.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to move even faster out of like public conversations, I guess.
It will unless it continues.
Unless it continues and like crazier things happen and she continues to, do to do something to gain attention, then it'll continue to stay in everybody's
She probably thinks
minds.
She's dating Piers Morgan now.
Maybe.
Piers Morgan's gonna be like, she's stalking me.
Yeah, she knows how old I am.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's that. Just wanted to talk about it. Watched like a couple hours of this today. I watched not only the interview, but then I watched a couple people discussing it. And they all just had the exact same take I did. So my takeaway is that she does not have any defenders.
Yeah.
I have not seen a single person. And I tried. I really went into it. I am a pretty unbiased guy for the most part. I always try to steel man people's arguments. I want to play devil's advocate. There are certain things that I was like, okay, I'm going to say this. But in the end, I just don't believe her.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anyone rational can. So there is no real path to defense with her in a good faith argument way. So she did it to herself. And because she's mentally ill, I do feel sorry for her. But other than that, she's asking for it.
We'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. But expect in the next week or less for there to be a mugshot, for there to be confirmation that the emails were sent from her. You're going to see this very quickly. It'll transpire overnight. Like, we'll wake up tomorrow and we'll find it. Well, shit, I'll turn this off and we'll have a notification. You watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't watched the show somehow, what the fuck? Get on it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Even though maybe it shouldn't exist. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
People do shit. We tell stories all the time. I mean, how many World War II movies have we made at this point?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Like,
true.
Fascinating things happen. People want to hear them about them. You're talking about how people are gossipers in their nature. I agree. And we're going to continue to keep telling stories like this forever.
Talking about other people, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yep. It's a way to feel better about ourselves. All right. We'll see you in the comments, guys. Bye.
Bye.